22 long rifle as compared to 38 special. And today what we have is our Federal punch ammunition. And I'm trying to be very careful about how I word this, as in comparison to rather than versus. You know, whenever I say versus on my test, I generally mean comparisons. Let's just see how one compares to the other. But a lot of people, for whatever reason, they take it as I'm setting up a competition, I'm using a caliber that's better than their favorite caliber, and I'm using an unfair competition. And then I get comments like, what's next, 22 short versus 50 VMG? It's like, that's not what I'm doing here. The reason why I compare something that you might say is not necessarily comparable to the other is because they kind of are in a way, because there's a lot of people that might think about getting a 38 special or something like that, and then, well, they can't handle the recoil, and 22 can be okay, so maybe they're going to use a 22 instead, etc., etc. So our Federal punch ammunition, our 38 special is a 120 grain 38 Special plus P. Has a pretty nice looking hollow point on that. And our 22 LR, I actually like this. This is kind of cool because there's not many handgun cartridges. They're meant for self-defense for 22 LRs. In fact, I think there's only two. One is the silver tip and one is the punch. The silver tip, though, I don't have any respect for that because they just rebox something that's just a basic jacket of hollow point. I have a lot of respect for Federal because they actually took the time to make something that will at least penetrate adequately. So they redesigned it. Instead of just using a hollow point and renaming some basic hollow point punch, they actually took a 29 grain bullet, which is standard weight for like a 22 short or a 22 long, and they pushed it up to 22 long rifle velocity. They put nickel plated cases and a flat point, and that flat point prevents tumbling. So you get adequate penetration, because we all know that with like 22 long rifle, you generally can't get expansion and penetration. So they took the thing that was more important and focused on it. So I have a lot of respect for that. And I'm using a 4-inch or 4.1 inch Taurus TX22 for our 22 long rifle versus a 3-inch Taurus 856 for our 38 special. And the reason why I use those comparisons, one is I do find that, you know, semi-auto is probably a little bit better choice for 22 long rifle. But when we compare our overall size of our firearms, they're almost exactly the same size. And that's important because, again, like with caliber choice, somebody might say, hey, I want a gun of this size or that size, so I'm going to pick this or that. And when you look at a 4.1 inch semi-automatic, you know, according to you know, technical terms, that includes the chambers, so you actually only get about 3.1 inches of barrel travel because the cartridge is about 1 inch long. And with our revolver, you get that full 3-inch barrel travel. So those are very comparable in that sense. And by the way, I actually loaded some cartridges very carefully. And at the end of the muzzle, when this end right here was pressed up against the cartridge, I put a piece of tape. Here's our 38 special. Here's our 22. And let's take a look at that. It's about as identical as you can get for the same amount of barrel travel. So you can't fault this as being unfair in that regard. So I'm going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I get at the same time. Then I'm going to do my 10% clear ballistic test. So I'm just going to go into plain 10% clear ballistics. No denim or fabric or anything like that, just to give the best potential of those cartridges. You have the best potential for expansion, penetration, all of that. And then after that, I'm going to put on 4 layers of denim on the front of this first 3 inches. This represents our pectoral muscle. After 3 inches of clear ballistics, I'm going to have a 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to represent ribs or sternum, and that'll be more of our real world simulation. And then I'm going to shoot at my steel target. I'm going to try to focus on like 10 yards today. I might back up a little bit, but you know, I want to focus on about 10 yards just to give, you know, a real practical overall feel of practical shootability, recoil, and try to express that of what I feel. So anyways, let's get started with this test. All right, so our 22 LR is rated at 1,070 feet per second through a 2-inch barrel. It's really cool they were specific about that. Our 38 special is rated at 1,000 feet per second. That's generally through a 4-inch barrel. So let's see what we get here with our 22 long rifle. I have about 5 yards from the target, 4 yards from the chronograph. See how close we get to 1,070. We should be a little bit higher than that. So here's our 22 long rifle. 1059, 1191, 1214, 1193, 1190. So if I recall right, there was some inconsistencies there. 38 special. We got 1,000 through a 4-inch. Let's see what we get with our 3-inch barrel. $10.28, nice. $10.59, $10.56, $10.16, $10.63. So consistently above rated velocity, which is generally through a 4-inch barrel, but through a 3-inch barrel. That's pretty good. Let's hit our ballistic gel block now, see how they compare, and that really is the word, compare. You know, if somebody thinks that a 38 special or 9mm is standard performance, how does something like a 22 compare to that? And I'm just trying to be helpful with that, not compete. So let's see what we get. All right, first up we have our 38 Special Plus P, and this is going to be pretty much what you're going to see with a standard centerfire cartridge for performance. So here's our 38 Special. All right, I'm going to try to go above that with our 22 LR. So take a look. All right, so what we have here is actually pretty good with our 22 long rifle. You know, the thing with 22 long rifle is oftentimes it's too slow or too weak, or you get too much expansion and you won't penetrate enough, or you'll penetrate pretty good but not any expansion. So even with like something like a mini mag, you might not get expansion with, you might be barely hitting 12 inches. But with this particular 22 LR, it looks like it did tumble. Even though it's a flat nose, it does look like it tumbled here, because there is a good amount of damage, more than I see with most 22 long rifle, and we have a very adequate penetration of about, it's just shy of 15 inches. Now with our 38 Special, that got some good expansion, so that limited that penetration a little bit to we're only about 13.5. However, that's very, very good. That's what we want to see. Really pretty much perfect performance for that 38 Special. So let's put on our MDF and put on our denim and see how they compare that way. All right, 4 layers of denim and a 1/4 inch medium density fiber board. See what I can do here with this 38 Special. All right, let's hit it above that with our 22 LR. So take a look. All right, so we're seeing here exactly what Federal was trying to do with this. This is very impressive. You know, what I'm seeing here with this 22 is very, very impressive. Now, of course, our 38 Special is impressive as well, because a lot of times it's hard to get a good 38 Special round. And we're definitely working with expansion in that first 3 inches, yet we still got adequate penetration. 22 long rifle, no expansion because it's not meant to expand. But what we're looking at here is with our 38 Special, we got a good amount of damage. We got a penetration rate at 15 inches in expansion. Our 22 LR, it's funny because that wound track there, or that damage path, looks very similar to our 38 Special. The bullet is facing forward. We penetrated just a hair more also to that 15-inch mark. But this is really impressive because anytime I've ever tested any other 22 long rifle through the MDF, it changes it significantly. You know, generally straight gel, whether it's a hollow point or whether it's a round nose, they generally don't expand either way, and they generally will tumble about. You might hit 14, 15 inches in plain gel, but then when you put that MDF in place, a lot of times, in fact most of the time, what I'm seeing is like 8 inches, 9 inches, after hitting an MDF. What we're seeing here is a full 15 inches. So kudos to Federal, because they really took the time to design something that's going to penetrate to an adequate level and also potentially tumble and do a lot of damage. So I would say this 22 long rifle round is significantly better than the rest when you're talking a handgun. So now let me hit our steel, see what kind of practical shootability I can get with these, and just see how they feel for felt recoil. All right, so here's our bullets pulled from the gel. Nice close-up view here. Here is our 38 Special. We have very excellent expansion. Very good. We did not get jacket separation. Our 22 long rifle. No real deformation there, as to be expected, but big difference in bullet weight, you know. 29 grain versus 120. Now, when we look at our MDF shots, this is very interesting. Our 38 Special, this is pretty typical. What I see when going through denim and going through MDF is the bullet gets a little bit damaged, but it still expanded and did pretty well. With our 22 long rifle, this is kind of surprising to me. A lot of times what I see, even with, you know, just round noses, you get more deformation than that. If I had to take a guess, I would say the hardness of that lead might be a little bit harder than typical. You know, I could be wrong about that, but it just seems like it's very consistent. You know, typical 22s are very soft, and that just seemed like, you know, it deformed less, and that's what we want. We want less deformation so that we can get very adequate penetration and possibly keep it as long as possible so it'll tumble and do as much damage as an expanded hollow point. So those are those bullets up close, and I'm going to say very impressive looking for both of these. Federal is doing a very good job. All right, so I'm going to be 10 yards from the muzzle right here. I'm actually standing about 11 yards away, but 10 yards from the muzzle. I want to try to put 12 rounds on target and see how those 12 rounds feel with our 38 Special. So let's see how I get here. 38 Special. So you do have to squeeze that quite a bit to really keep good control of that firearm. So let's see, 12 rounds here with our 22 LR. All right, so you can see, you know, what I would do if I had to make shots with the 22 is a little bit different than what I'd have to do with the 38 Special. You know, 38 Special has a lot of bullet weight, a lot of momentum. It's going to keep trucking through if you make center mass shots. You know, when I make, you know, head shots, it's because I'm anticipating that the 22 LR might not necessarily do super well, but then if I raise it up, it will do the job. So what I'm seeing here is, honestly, both of these are great choices here. I can't really say that one is significantly better than the other when you consider everything. Now, obviously, when we're looking at terminal ballistics in that gel, obviously, our 38 Special has a lot more potential for doing damage and for going deep. You know, in the real world, sometimes, you know, there's more bones and there's more barriers in the way if you hit a windshield or a car door or whatever else it might be. Our 38 Special is definitely going to have a more significant advantage. But when I say I can't call which one's better here, I'm calling that because of the shootability here. Because when I'm talking about shooting those 12 rounds on target, I'm going to say a skill level 1 to 10 for your average shooter. How hard was that to do? I would say probably like a 7. As where on a skill level 1 to 10 on your average shooter, how hard was this to do? Boom, 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 boom. Probably like a 3. So it's more than twice as easy to place shots, and that counts for a lot when it comes to this 22. Our felt recoil, I would say, is 1/3 of the 38 Special plus P with this. So taking that all into consideration, yes, terminal ballistics, the 38 Special wins hands down. It's a better choice. However, considering we were getting consistent penetration over the minimum that is needed, and these 22s are so easy to shoot, I'm going to say there's a lot worse choices out there, and it didn't do bad at all. So You can draw the rest of your own conclusions from this test, but that's what you get today with my testing. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.